Hi, good morning, everyone. So let us now continue on this topic, the Malaysian Constitution, from where we left on Wednesday. So let us now quickly recap what we have covered in our class on Wednesday. So these were the learning outcomes to identify the main features of the Constitution and to analyze some of the main provisions, particularly in relation to issues like federalism, language, race, and religion. Okay, now a point that we always have to remind ourselves why the Constitution is important in discussions about Malaysia or about any country in general is because the constitution of any country is considered supreme, which means when it comes to any dispute with regards to any legal issues in any country, or in this case Malaysia, the ultimate reference is the federal constitution. Okay, so we have discussed this also on Wednesday. If you have, for example, disputes between state governments and federal government, the ultimate reference would be to decide or to mediate the conflict or to find a solution would be to interpret the federal constitution, right, comprehensively. Okay, we have looked at this diagram before, the main features of the Constitution. You can refer to this on your own later on. You have the slides uploaded already on Open Learning for your reference. All right, so this was the topic that we stopped on Wednesday, which is about defining a Malay person and the reason why this is important from the point of view of the Malaysian constitution and also the implication on certain government policies. Now, simply put, as stated in this particular diagram, a Malay person is someone who is a Muslim, who speaks Malay and follow the Malay custom. So basically, the definitive requirement is religion, involves religion, language, and also custom. So, why this is important? So, just to recap again, the Malay people over here in Malaysia are considered to be part of the native community in the country, and the word that is used to refer to native communities over here in Malaysia is the term that you see over here, Bumiputera. Now, students from Indonesia would know what this means. Bumi means earth or land. Uh, Putra means prince, literally, or son. So Bumiputra literally translates as the son of the soil or the son of the nation. So that refers to the argument or the meaning is native people. All right. So the Malays are a major group of the Bumiputra, yes. But not only the Malays, Bumiputra also covers the native communities in Sabah and Sarawak. And as I stated on Wednesday, the natives of Sabah and Sarawak are not necessarily Malays in terms of are not Malays necessarily in terms of their ethnic background, nor are they necessarily Muslims. In fact, the majority of the natives in Sabah and Sarawak currently they are Christians. Okay, so what is the implication if you fall under the category of Bumiputra? You get these privileges in terms of public service positions, scholarship, trade and business licenses, and also tertiary education enrollment. Now, as some of you have expressed in class on Wednesday, you feel that this is unfair to the others in the country, particularly the Chinese and Indians, who are in large numbers in this country. Although they are minority, yes, but they are a rather significant minority in the population. So I've tried to explain to you the reason why this was imposed, and still I do understand that some of you may feel it is unfair. I very much sympathize with that. I very much would like to hear what would be your suggestion for on this topic in terms of how maybe we can do things better. that will be for the tutorial. Right? I'll explain this further at the end of this lecture. All right, so we have covered the race from the point of view of Bumiputera, right, in terms of how that is defined and also the significance of that. We now look at language. So over here in Malaysia, the only national language is the Malay language or Bahasa Melayu. This is stated in Article 152, Section 12 of the Constitution. The national language decided upon is the Malay language. However, nobody will be prohibited or hindered from using, teaching, or learning any other languages. Okay. The implication of the second point is now ensures that minority groups over here in Malaysia can still use and also teach their mother tongue, their native languages. So the implication further to that is that over here in Malaysia, we do have Chinese and Tamil vernacular schools. What that means is in these schools, the main medium of instruction is Mandarin for Chinese schools and Tamil for the schools for the Indian community. Okay, so that is something that is quite unique, I would say. In the example of Malaysia, some countries they have only one national language and that's it. You don't have any more languages that are being used as medium of instruction in schools. But over here in Malaysia, we do protect the rights of minority groups. Quite different also when you look into the example of our neighbor Singapore. Singapore officially recognized four languages to be their national languages, plural, right? Malay, English, Tamil, and also Mandarin. But over here in Malaysia, it's only one. The implication of this in terms of how we run this country is that all major announcements and government papers, documents should be written in the Malay language. As much as possible, should be only in the Malay language. However, when it comes to certain documents and announcements where you know the implication or the reference or the effect to it also concerns foreigners and international visitors in this country, so it has to be also produced in English. But when it comes to things such as, within the education system or within the ministries, the official reference or correspondence are all done in Malay. Okay, now why that is done? Because you need to have, and for a country like us, a multicultural society, you need to have one unifying factor. And language is actually one important vehicle or medium that you can use. Right? Students from Indonesia would understand this even more. It's a large country, Indonesia, right? And you have within the Republic of Indonesia many native languages and dialects. But when it comes to national language, it's only one, Bahasa Indonesia. So over here in Malaysia, we try to have that also. But in Indonesia, it's even more strict. You can't use any other languages in schools, right or not? Over here in Malaysia, we can, right? So it is still allowed. So there is greater freedom for minority groups over here in Malaysia compared to I would say, our neighboring countries, Indonesia, and also even Thailand. Right? Now, moving on, let's look into the issue of. No, again, sorry. Now, before we move on to the next issue, which is on religion, again about national language. Now, a point for us to remember: English was still widely used during the first 10 years after independence. Debates in Parliament, government correspondence, announcements were still done in English and also in Malay. But after 10 years, only then the debates in Parliament, starting from 1967, right? So independence in 57, only starting in 1967 onwards, the debates in Parliament were done entirely in Malay. Of course, you may have individuals or members of parliament who don't speak Malay very well, so they may have to maybe use certain English terms and words. It's okay. That one you can do, but you cannot like use like 50-50 mix English and Malay. That would not be something which is acceptable. The Speaker of the House, in fact, has the right to in a way reprimand you or to ask you to do something to improve yourself before you can come back to participate in the debate in Parliament. Now, and when it comes to education, in fact, the use of English in our national schools was still used up until the 1970s. It was only after 1971 Malay became the official main medium of instruction at both schools and also in um, higher learning institutions, public universities especially. But when it comes to private colleges and institutions like here UOW Malaysia KDU, we have a bit more liberty to use either Malay or English. So here we prefer, or we have chosen to use English for certain reasons, obviously. But then the use of Malay is still prominent as far as education is concerned. Now moving on to religion. Now religion on or the issue on religion is provided for in Part 1, Chapter 3 of the Malaysian Constitution, and it states Islam is the official religion of the Federation, but other religions are allowed to be practiced in peace and harmony in any part of the Federation. Article 11. Now, what is the implication of this? So Islam is the only official religion. So that basically means Islam is the only religion where you can publicly display and organize events in the society. When it comes to other religions, it's not that you cannot organize any public events, but you need to acquire a permit. So this is something that in a way gives certain uh, privileges through special position on the part of the Islamic religion in the Malaysian constitution. Why? Because again, you relate back to the point we mentioned before. Because in Malaysia, a Malay person must be a Muslim. So race and religion comes together. It cannot be separated. A Malay person must always be a Muslim as far as the constitution is concerned. So that's why the position of Islam needs to be recognized in the same way the Malay person or the Bumiputera group and also the Malay language is upheld as the only of a certain high state of a certain uh, special status compared to others. So further implication about freedom of religion, right? In relation to this particular article in the Malaysian Constitution, we will discuss this when we come to the last topic in this course on Islam and other religions in Malaysia, and that will be later. Right? But keep this in mind. This question that I've stated over here: is there freedom of religion in Malaysia? What do you think? Right? So if Islam is the official religion and the only official religion, is there really freedom of religion in Malaysia? Think about that. Again, I don't mind that if you wish to give some critical view about the current practice and law and policy over here in Malaysia, by all means, please do share your opinion. I'm more than happy to try and discuss and try to explain to you the reason why certain things are done in a certain way over here in Malaysia. Now, moving on, the last point on this topic on the Malaysian Constitution is on citizenship. So, what is so special about becoming a Malaysian citizen? So, these are the benefits that you get. The first one is the right to vote in an election. Now, over here in Malaysia, you can only vote in any election. You can only vote in elections, any kind of elections, only if you are a Malaysian citizen. I know in some countries, if you are a permanent resident, you can actually vote. If you are a foreign student, also perhaps for certain elections you can vote, especially when it comes to local elections for the town or for the city or for the district. But over here in Malaysia, no. Only if you are a Malaysian citizen, you can vote. And that applies also when it comes to active participation in politics. What does that mean? That means contesting in elections. If you want to take part in political activities, political causes, that's fine, that's okay. But for you to be nominated as a candidate in elections, that one you cannot. You have to become a Malaysian citizen. The right to fill a post that is exclusively for citizens of Malaysia. What are the common examples? The common examples would be public servants. Right, so civil servants over here in Malaysia currently, full-time civil servants are all Malaysian citizens. We may have a few foreign staff or foreigners who work in government agencies, but they are always on contract basis. right? But permanent positions, full-time positions are only for exclusively for Malaysian citizens. Free to own landed property. Yeah, over here in Malaysia, there is a bit more restrictions for foreigners, but for when it comes to citizen, you can own as many property as you want. Of course, you follow the law with regards to taxation and others. But foreigners, can you own property over here in Malaysia? You can, but not all kinds, right? Only certain high value property foreigners can own or can purchase. But when it comes to the properties that are more affordable, uh, more like medium size and small size, those are reserved the ownership only for Malaysian citizens, right? The right to receive a number of benefits and facilities in the country, including welfare benefits, education, and others. Yeah, this is only for Malaysians. Over here in Malaysia, we do have public education system, national schools, where the payment that you pay for school fees is very minimal. It's only about 100 ringgit every year per student. When it comes to our healthcare system, yes, we do have public healthcare system, which is also almost free, minimal payment for Malaysian citizen. But if you are a foreigner, the payment that you have to pay may be a bit, the fees that you have to pay may be a bit more. Education, when it comes to schools over here in Malaysia, national schools, unfortunately today are no longer accepting any foreign students. In the past, there used to be a bit more liberty or um, uh, situations where foreign students can be admitted, especially people who are working over here and their children were born over here, perhaps. So some of them would like their children to go to our national school. So in the past that was allowed, but now no more. Sorry. Freedom of movement. Now, yeah, if you're a Malaysian citizen, you can move anywhere around the federation. You do not require any special permit um, because we have the concept of federalism over here in this country. State government do not control international state boundaries, right? So you can move anywhere. Uh, when it comes to maybe going to Sabah and Sarawak, there is a bit of exclusive autonomy given to both the government of Sabah and Sarawak. They can actually stop you if they don't like you. But normally that happens only if you are part of their blacklist, being someone who is perhaps considered to be of some amount of threat to the state government or the ruling party over there, or maybe you have certain prior cases of criminal activities. So maybe right, they have the right to stop you. But other than that, it's okay. But if you are a foreigner over here in this country also, there's no restriction in terms of movement. So in many ways, this is actually quite similar. It's only, of course, foreigners, if you want to stay here for long term, you need to acquire a long-term visa or permanent residency, or maybe try to become a Malaysian citizen. How do you do that? Now, these are the ways for you to that you can try to acquire Malaysian citizenship. The first one, jus soli, birthplace, is there in theory, but in actual practice, no longer applicable. Now, why I say so? Because this is something that is more relevant in the past, right? During or in the few years before and after we gained independence in 1957, the issue of citizenship needs to be resolved, especially for those who are Chinese and Indians, who ancestors who came here maybe about 100 years ago. They were born here. They don't want to go back to the land of their ancestors, so they want to stay here. So they were allowed to stay here as long as they can prove that they were born over here in this country. So how do you prove that? Of course, you show your birth certificate. We do have birth certificates starting from the late 19th century, right, under the British administration before. So in those days, yes. But nowadays, if you are born over here in Malaysia and your parents are not Malaysian citizen, no, it's not. You cannot actually automatically become a Malaysian citizen. You actually have to prove naturalization. So that's something else. We'll cover the last point over there. The direct rule for citizenship applies only for the second point over there, jus sanguinis, or blood descent. If either of your parents or both your parents are Malaysian citizen, then you will become a Malaysian citizen. Uh, so that is something that is guaranteed, right? Either one, right? If your father, in the case of my children, for example, I'm Malaysian, my wife was not, my kids automatically can become Malaysian citizen. If it was vice versa, I'm not Malaysian, my wife is Malaysian. Also now it's automatic. You have the right to become Malaysian citizens. There was some issues in the past for certain countries. If the wife is a Malaysian citizen, the husband comes from certain countries that are blacklisted by the Malaysian government, may not be automatic. But now, no. Now they have actually made it much more liberal, much more easy. Through marriage, if you marry a Malaysian, can you become a Malaysian citizen? Not necessarily. Again, the more important thing is to understand the last point over there, naturalization. Now, what does that mean? It means this. So, how do you prove naturalization? By satisfying this particular requirement. In a period of 12 years, you need to show evidence that you have spent at least 10 years in Malaysia and not anywhere else. How do you check that? How do they check that? They check from your passport records, your entry and exit records from this country. So what will be examples where this requirement is not met? Easy example would be for anyone who is not Malaysian, but you stay over here in Malaysia for 12 years, but you in fact only stay in Malaysia in 1 year, maybe only 3 months. Right? The remaining 9 months, you either go back to your home country or you travel anywhere else. So if that's the case, you stay only 3 months in a year for a period of 12 years, that's only 12 times 3, only 36. So only 36 months. So that is only how many years? Only 3 years. Not enough. So you only stay in Malaysia based on that calculation 3 years out of 12. Not enough. You need to show that you resided over here for at least 10 years, which means that if you want to go anywhere else, go back to your hometown, to your home country, or go traveling overseas, you cannot go for too long. You have to return, you have to stay, spend more time over here in this country. Why this particular rule exists? Because we want to ensure, the government wants to ensure those who really wants to become Malaysian citizen, they want to do so because they want to stay here, not because of any other reason. This is not something that is peculiar only for Malaysia. Many other countries, I believe, have the same rule. Main prominent example would be the UK, the United Kingdom, where you also have to show this particular, or you have to also meet this particular requirement stated here as, or using the term naturalization. Okay. The other point stated over there, if you, and again, I have to mention this. This is what you have in theory. In practice, how is it done? You have to apply. Even once you have met this particular requirement, does that mean automatically you become a Malaysian citizen? Not necessarily. You have to apply, and when you apply, they also will check whether you have good character, which means you have a clean record, no involvement in crimes, and also you have adequate knowledge of the Malay language. What do you mean by adequate? At least you are able to engage in some basic conversation. It doesn't mean that you have to be of a certain high level when it comes to Malay classical literature. No, right? It's just that adequate means that you are able to converse. You can speak and you can understand when people speak to you. Right? There is actually an exam that they actually do, written exam and also oral tests to test your Malay language capabilities. Okay, but again, all of this is something that allows you to apply. Always remember, you have the right to apply, but whether it is accepted or not is entirely based on the decision from the government of Malaysia. And the government also, if they were to reject your application, they are not obligated to provide you with any reasons. Right? So again, I don't think that this is something, I'm sure in fact this is not something which is unique only to Malaysia. most countries, I think, have this particular rule also. The government decides. Nothing, there's no such thing as automatically, if you meet certain criteria, you get citizenship. They will investigate or do a background check about you and also your family background, your professional background, and so on, to see whether you are really someone who is suitable or would not cause basically any trouble if you become a Malaysian citizen. All right, so this is just for your information. For someone like me who is a full Malaysian citizen, we have our ID card or kad pengenalan in Malaysia. The ID card, the color is blue, right? The one that you see in the bottom half of this slide. The upper half of the slide, that is the red color identity card, that is for permanent residents. Students who are international students who have been here for quite some time, I'm sure you know, you also get a card given by our National Registration Department. But that card, the color I believe is orange, or is it green? Right. So this is something that you get as international students. What is the benefit or why you are given an official international student card? Because you can use that for identification when you go out. You don't need to bring your passport along with you all the time. And also it gives you some benefit on certain places. You can be given discount, student discount, entrance fee, movie tickets, and things like that. Right. So if you haven't been to Malaysia, as some of you are still in your home country, eventually I hope when you come to Malaysia, make sure you have that card because it gives you certain benefits. Not much, but some benefits. All right, so the final point on this discussion is about how the constitution can be amended. We've talked about this previously. We want the constitution on one hand to be solid, to be strong, which means that it's not something so fragile that it can be changed very easily. But at the same time, you don't want also the constitution to be too rigid to the point that it becomes so difficult to be amended, especially when it comes to new challenges and issues that you have to face. You want to introduce maybe a very major new law or abolish certain laws in the past that you consider to be outdated. These are some instances that we can think about. So the Constitution states that the Constitution of Malaysia can be amended. And why and how it can be amended? It can only be amended with the approval or with the support of two-thirds members of the parliament. So what does two-thirds mean? So over here in Malaysia, this refers to the House of Representative, the lower house, Dewan Rakyat, stated over there. So two-thirds of the Dewan Rakyat, members of Dewan Rakyat in total is 222. So how many is two-thirds? It's 148, it's stated over there. When it comes to the upper house, how many total members do you have in the upper house or the Senate over here in Malaysia? That is 70. So two-thirds for 70 is how many? It is 47, stated over there. So that's why when it comes to general elections over here in Malaysia, for a ruling coalition to govern the country in a more stable way, they need to have that two-thirds majority. Now, some of you may follow Malaysian politics in the past 1 year or so. You may recall or you may know, for example, we have changed government at some point early this year. Why that happened? Because the government was not strong. The majority that they had was very thin. Okay. So final point, right? So after this, please move on to the tutorial, answer that one question. The question that we have this week is to ask you to explain a suggestion. So make sure you explain in some details, right? Not just simply write, I suggest we abolish this. I suggest replace that guy. No, it's not just that. Explain why, explain how. All right. So I look forward to hear your views. There's nothing necessarily a totally right or wrong answer when it comes to a question like this, but you need to be able to explain and justify your opinion. All right, so please take your time to think about how to write or what you want to write for the answer for this week's tutorial. I look forward to reading them and we will discuss some of them at least later on when we meet again next week on Wednesday. All right, for now, thank you for listening. Have a nice weekend. Stay safe. Take care. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.